Hey, everybody. I've still got my Santa sweater on. I don't know, it looks kind of weird on here. But ho, ho, ho. It was hump day. I was thinking of Wendy. Um, let's read some comments. Hey, you Row Sharp. Knock, knock. Who's there? Wendy, Wendy who? Wendy, wind blows to cradle will rock. That's funny. Hey, John Smith. Mr. C. Blue River. Ain't no hollaback girl. You're very popular on all the same channels that I watch. I listen a lot during the day to the Brian Walsh case. I just can't really chat because I have like an AirPod in at work and I kind of hide it behind my hair. But I'll hear like Joe Petito say, "Hey, ain't no hollaback girl." Oh, Jim Richmond, did you mean to gift that twice? Because that is just too generous, and thank you. But I'm happy to figure out how to do a refund because I don't want you to have duplicated it twice. But thank you. And I'm happy you're here. Hey, the two, how are you? Wendy's last Thanksgiving on the outside with hair straightening products. Yeah, well, and I know everybody's like bummed that Donna got the prison they requested, and I hear you. But there is that little bit that's like, she knows her condo is 43 miles from there. And to me, like, I think that's just even more painful. That woman had no idea what kind of prison was 43 miles away. Hola, Dolce Leslie. I reposted your latest video drop. Thank you. I have some others. So I've decided to read the probable cause because what I'm realizing is, like me, a lot of people just like to listen when they're doing things. So I'm working on that. And I also want to say the Tagalog conversation between Katie and her brother the other night. So True Crime Wifey texted, she's like, Leslie, it's not tag along. It's not a cookie. So that I was calling it tag along. It's Tagalog. So, um, hello, NBM. Good to see you. Mr. C, tennis girl. Happy you're here. Okay, so this show, I don't want y'all hating on me, but it's actually, it was streamed on STS like 2 years ago, but it's Dave Aronberg speaking, Ruth Markel, Dennis Murphy from Dateline. And I did contact STS, and the COE wrote me back, and she's like, absolutely, you're welcome to share it. Somebody on here shared it with me recently, and I can't remember who it was. It was either Ain't No Hollaback Girl or might have been New York Patriot Girl. I apologize that I don't remember who, but I thought y'all would enjoy it. I've really enjoyed watching it. Hey, Rock Solid Alibi, True Crime Wifey. I know. I already corrected. It's not tag along. Tag along cookie. So good seeing everybody. Yes, people are so generous. I'm a really bad gift receiver. So my spiritual gift is gift giving. I love to gift. I love to shop for people and really put thought in it, but I have a really hard time receiving. Oh, yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Friday too. So that's going to be comparing Elizabeth Holmes and Wendy. It'll be a good one. It's kind of crazy how I don't remember. Yes, y'all are so generous. Tam 2505. Does anybody know which prison is worse? People are saying Lowell is worse, but Homestead is listed as having air conditioning, but then I've also heard that it's always broken. They don't fix it. It's got a real mosquito problem because it's in the middle of swampland. So that all sounds pretty miserable. And I just think every prison is going to be miserable. Well, hi, Annette from England. Oh, tennis girl, I know you're ball humbug. That's okay. We can all have our opinions. Tater, I like saying that. So good to see you. And K-Love, you might have been the one that recommended this video to me. I gotta think about who did that. And Joel talks, just so you'll know, for like the first 10 minutes or so. But what I really wanted to share was Ruth. Somebody posted or commented on one of my videos yesterday and said, I'm just sick of hearing about Wendy and Donna. You focus too much on them. Share about the Markels. Well, the Markels are really private. Ruth will do interviews, and I always try to share what I see or find, but Phil has just not really wanted to talk. So, I just want y'all to know I'm not trying to ignore them. Yes, that was very nice of them to share the content. And they actually asked if they could use some of my videos. And I said, absolutely. I'm here to share. Absolutely. Hey, Sally, Lowell is definitely the worst. Homestead is a walk in the park by comparison, but it's unlikely they will allow Donna and Wendy to be in the same prison, which means Lowell is in Wendy's future. That's right. I saw that Patty N, who used to work for the Adelsons, she said that. She's like, Lowell for Wendy. I'm glad you like the sweater. We had our holiday Christmas party at work today. So I got this on Amazon. I don't even know if it's going to make it through the season. These little Santa beards are just, I'm treading all over. Hey, Beach Bum, good to see you. With Donna Short. Was that Welcome to Miami? Yeah. I was like, oh my God, the Will Smith song. It's perfect. Hey, True Crime. I understand you're listening. Claudia. All right, I'll keep saying hi. I want to get started. I like to respect people's time. I don't want 45 minutes of blah, blah, blah. So I do appreciate y'all all being here, but I think you'll enjoy this.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Sarah Franco. I'm the CEO of JAFCO, which is the facility that you are in. And it's my pleasure to welcome all of you. It has been said that each of us will die 2 times. The first time is the moment that we take our last breath. The second time is the final time that someone mentions our name. With all of the love in this room and around the world, for the entire Markel family, for Phil and Shelley, and of course for Ruth, who's here with us tonight, and the boys, and also for Danny of blessed memory. It's very likely that Danny's soul will live forever. JAFCO is honored to host tonight's program, Perspective on Trial Life, and to dedicate this program in loving memory of Dan Markel. I know that you share with me in joining and sharing all of our love and condolences to Danny's mom, Ruth, whom you'll meet shortly, and is such an inspiration to all of us and my personal hero. Ruth connected with JAFCO because of our mission, which is to provide care, safety, and support to children and their families within the Jewish community and beyond who are impacted by child abuse, neglect, trauma, or developmental disabilities, giving every child a place to belong. This center that you are sitting in is the JAFCO Children's Ability Center.
I'm just making sure everybody knows. So JAFCO is that group or that home, I don't want to call it foster care, that Ruth had lined up with Georgia Kappelman or the state attorney's office in the event that Wendy was arrested, that they would take the boys until Ruth or Phil could get down from Canada.
And right next door, even as we speak, we are providing support to families raising children with autism and other developmental disabilities. There are children in the building enjoying programs and making friends while their parents are enjoying a much needed break. that happens 24/7, 365, and it is also available to them overnight. It's the only center in the United States that provides this level of support for families with developmental disabilities. This event venue, known as Illuminate, is the only event venue in the country with a cause, and it provides employment to young adults with autism. And you may have met some of them outside if you bought a Bareka. And they get paid same wage that anyone else would, and it's also part of our mission. This venue is available for rent for a wedding or bar mitzvah or a kitzeh or corporate event, and the rental fee is tax deductible because of our charitable mission. So if you're looking for a venue,
I'm just going to turn it up forward just for a minute, and then when we get to the speakers, I'll go back.
Yeah, there's nothing better than this. Our children's village, which is about 3 miles from here, provides a home environment and love to 50 children at one time who have been removed from their parents due to abuse or neglect. We also have foster and adoptive families and also provide clinical case management to families in crisis at all of our sites. Our Eagles Haven site in Parkland is a recovery center for the community who suffered the trauma of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting 6 years ago. One of our programs is supporting grandparents who are raising their grandchildren. And because of the Markel Act and Ruth's advocacy efforts, all of the proceeds from tonight's event and any donations that are made on a card at one of your tables will go to that program, because that's something that's so important to Ruth. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. If you want to learn more about JAFCO, you can go on our website. And the first Wednesday of every month, there is a community tour. I would like to welcome all of you. We have a couple here that flew in for this event from Utah. So I'd like for them to stand because they get the prize for the furthest. Even though it probably took the people from Miami longer to get here. So there's cards on your table, and there's information about our charity on your way out on the piano. And please feel free to do that and come back and see us again. And to begin the evening, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce the moderator of our program, Joel Waldman. Joel is an Emmy Award-winning broadcast journalist. For more than 25 years, Joel covered breaking news and investigative stories. Joel was a DC-based Fox News Network correspondent covering the complex world of national politics from Capitol Hill. He was an investigative reporter for Fox 5 in New York City and worked for TV stations in West Palm Beach, Miami, and Tucson. Joel began his career as one of the first producers hired by MSNBC. During the pandemic, Joel and his Holocaust survivor mom, Carmela, who's here tonight. Where's Carmela? She's right here. They started a podcast together called Surviving the Survivor. What started off as a way to stay busy during the lockdown has now turned into so much more. Surviving the Survivor brings world-renowned experts in law and crime to cover some of the biggest true crime cases. The podcast now has live daily shows and reaches more than 2.5 million people every month. Surviving the Survivor started covering true crime a little over a year ago with the Dan Markel story. It is our honor to have Joel here today to use his incredible skills to moderate our panel discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Joel Waldman.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Please, everyone give a round of applause for JAFCO. They're hosting this, and the work that they do is really amazing. They foster young children, and it is the most important work that there is. I got a master's degree, which is a long story in education. I taught, and it was the hardest job I ever had until Carm, who's sitting in the front row somewhere, right there, that I can never do it because it's way too hard. So I went into news, which is slightly dysfunctional, but we'll get to that. So big shout out to, by the way, Sarah Franco has been the one and only executive director here the entire 31 years. So that is amazing. Also, Shelley Gold helped put this together. I don't know if she's here or where she is. A round of applause for her, as well as Michael Moran. Michael Moran is here. I don't know if you'll have to say it, but I will. He was the executive chef of the Queen of Jordan. And last but not least, behind you in that pink striped sweatshirt, Rob Lintosky. He is videotaping this, and this is going to eventually go on STS, and he's doing it out of the kindness of his heart. So great people here. I want to quickly thank my beloved mother in the front row, Carm, without whom I would not be here for many reasons. And so thank you to her. She was generous enough to sit down with me and do a series of recordings over a long period of time. And that has now turned into a book called Surviving the Survivor. My father was my hero. He died this past March. He wrote a book when I was like 4 years old that about 3 people read, and 2 of them did not understand it. And I said to myself, I'm going to write a book that everybody understands. It's in the same vein as Tuesdays with Morrie. It is my mother's take on life. And the great Mitch Albom, who wrote Tuesdays with Morrie, gave us an endorsement for the book. And pre-sales will be out, so I'd love for you guys to read that book because it is my mom's story. My beautiful wife is in the back filming this because she always has to work. I will not let her stop. Steve Cohen, stand up. Steve Cohen, otherwise known as Steve Cohen, he's the brains behind the operation. And Space Coast out on the West Coast, he handles all our tech stuff, and the mods, they do an amazing job. So how did we get?
I do want to say Steve Cohen is one of the nicest men. I've never met him in person, but we've emailed and things before, and he's just so genuinely nice. And the COE and I exchanged emails last night, and she was so nice.
Get into this. Again, I was just kind of bored during the pandemic. I had started the business. I'd left Fox News, did not know what to do with myself. And I said, wow, let me bug my mother. And one day a week, we went to a studio. She said it was like getting out of the nursing home. You know, she lives in a nice condo in Miami Beach. And we talked about nonsense. And someone said to us, I think it was Steve Cohen, no one's ever going to listen to this. He said, you guys think you're a lot funnier than you are. And so he said, look, I heard about this case, the Dan Markel murder. And he told me about it. And I said, this is odd. This is a really tragic story. This guy's a brilliant mind. He went to Harvard undergrad. He went to Harvard Law School. And on the flip side, you've got this overbearing Jewish mother, Donna Adelson. You've got this neurotic son, Charlie Adelson, that can't stop calling his mother. And I call my mom about 73 times a day. So I said, who would ever do that? And I realized it was me. And I got really invested in the story. And the rest, as they say, is history. We cover a lot of other stuff. But I would not be here. We would not have our success if it wasn't for these people. Dennis is a guest on our show. Ruth, obviously, is the backbone of our show. Dave Aronberg is one of the most media savvy guys you'll ever meet. And he is the state attorney, as you all know, for Palm Beach County here in Florida. He is ubiquitous. He's going to be on Morning Joe tomorrow. He's always on the TV. And he's the reason, and Ruth, that people come and watch our show. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Ruth. Ruth is the author of the very popular book now about her son's murder, Dan. It is called The Unveiling, a mother's reflection on murder, grief, and trial life. Prior to writing The Unveiling, Ruth was already a noted author, a public speaker, and the president of R&M Enterprises, a leading management consulting firm. I love this. She always says, don't get lost in the loss. It is a phrase that she has coined. Before we get to Ruth, we're going to play a quick video. Most of the people in here know the story about Dan Markel, but the COE was kind enough to work on this and put it together. And we will play this for you, I hope, and then Ruth will give her remarks. Thank you.
Nearly a decade ago, a loving father of 2 young boys and a rising Florida State University legal scholar was shot outside his Tallahassee home while sitting in his car. That man was Dan Markel. He died less than 24 hours later in the hospital. The Harvard Law School educated professor's life was cut short before ever even entering his prime. Danny, as family and friends knew him, had finalized his divorce from ex-wife Wendy Adelson in 2013, but they were still in a bitter dispute over finances, personal property, and allegations from Dan that his former mother-in-law, Donna Adelson, was disparaging Dan during her visits with grandchildren Ben and Lincoln. Tallahassee police interviewed Wendy, who told them about the divorce issues but denied that she was involved in the shooting. As investigators searched for clues, they interviewed Wendy Adelson's former boyfriend, Jeffrey Lacasse, who told them they should look into Wendy Adelson's brother, Charlie. Wendy also flagged Charlie to the police. Fast forward to 2023. We now know this was a murder for hire. The trigger man, Sigfredo Garcia, along with Latin King gang member Luis Rivera, were convicted of the heinous murder. So was Katie Magbanawa. She's the link between the Miami hitmen and the Adelson family. Charlie Adelson was eventually arrested and went on trial just this past fall. More than 9 years after the murder,
First-degree murder?
It took the jury only 3 hours to reach a guilty verdict against Charlie Adelson, who was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Exactly 1 week after his conviction, to almost everyone's surprise, while trying to flee the country, matriarch Donna Adelson was also arrested. She was on the jetway at Miami International Airport boarding a flight to Dubai. Final destination was Vietnam. Donna was formally arraigned in December and now sits in a Tallahassee jail. Ironically, the same place she so desperately wanted her grandchildren to leave, and the reason most believe was the motive for Dan's cruel murder.
Please welcome Ruth Markel, Dan Markel's mother. Please give her a big round of applause.
Thank you so much. First of all, I really have to compliment Joel, Ileana, Steve Cohn. I have never seen anything on our case with such brevity and so effective. So the creative part of you is really very, very special. And thank you. And then, of course, there's JAFCO and Sarah Franco. So we go back a little while, and it is very heartwarming for me to be speaking tonight at JAFCO, and of course, in honor of Sarah Franco, who's done so much for our family. While it's heartwarming for us, it's heartbreaking with what's going on in the world and all of the loss of different family members. So I'm always very sensitive. I have these antennae that sort of says, hey, there's a lot of loss going on. So I want to share with you, I was a grieving mother in 2014. Dan.
Because he was worried
Sorry.
about.
I have never seen anything on JAFCO, at JAFCO, and of course, in honor of Sarah Franco, who's done so much for our family. While it's heartwarming for us, it's heartbreaking with what's going on in the world and all of the loss of different family members. So I'm always very sensitive. I have these antennae that sort of says, hey, there's a lot of loss going on. So I want to share with you, I was a grieving mother in 2014. Dan was shot on July 18th, and he died July 19th. He became known as the slain professor in Florida, and I became known as the mother of the slain professor in Florida. And we waited. We waited for 2 years after it was known that it's going to be, the murder was not random, it was a murder for hire, but we didn't know who it was yet. But then suddenly, in 2016, there was a big break in the case. A man called Zigfredo Garcia, the shooter. I know a lot of you know the case better than me, but I want to just give you a synopsis. I'm sure more people listen to more of the calls than I have even started to hear. So I do want to just give the synopsis of how my relationship starts with JAFCO. So at the time, Zigfredo Garcia is arrested. Luis Rivera, the actual driver, he was also arrested, and Rivera plea bargained, and he brought in a woman called Catherine McBanawa. Now, Catherine McBanawa and Garcia, this is better than Take the Place. Some of you know that from that period. Garcia and Catherine McBanawa had a common law relationship, and they had 2 children together. But their relationship was really up and down. And in one of the down times, Catherine McBanawa dated Charlie Adelson. So this brings us into the liaison and the opportunity for the family to hire these hitmen. So at that time, after the arrest happened, there was so much silence before then. I got nervous, and I began to fear that my 2 grandchildren, Benjamin and Lincoln, could be involved because of the fact that the family was taking them, now this is the Adelson family, to school and to different places. So I made an inquiry into JAFCO's services. Some of you know that part of the story, and that was the point at which Wendy Adelson cut us off for 6 years. So tonight, I'm really pleased that all of the interest here this evening is going to the Grandparents Initiative. And included in that, really, in the Grandparent Initiative, it started my journey of kind of moving from grief to advocacy, which I'll tell you about a little bit later. I do want to tell you, the book we'll talk about in a minute has a lot to do with grief, but I also want to tell you that I do believe in post-traumatic change, post-traumatic growth, and positive well-being. So in this tragedy, in this terrible tragedy, there are some positive potential outcomes. So I'll continue along. I developed this beautiful relationship with Sarah, and every time there's a trial, Sarah keeps on texting me and telling me, okay, you need to do meditation. Are you taking care of yourself? And she's like this guardian who reminds me that self-care is really an important part of all the stress
related. So I am indebted to Sarah. I also spoke last year here, well, not in this building, the other building, for some of the therapists who work with some of the families in the other programs of JAFCO, as well as some of the therapists who work with the surviving families of, and I should say surviving, and some of the families who've lost a child in the Parkland situation. So that's my history, and I want to talk tonight at a different perspective. So as you all know, Hanukkah just happened, the holidays are coming up, Christmas, New Year's, and so forth, and everybody's in a celebratory mood. Should be, I hope so, although they say holidays are not always celebratory. But my talk today is actually a tragic story, and it's a survival story. So in the group here tonight, we have Dennis Murphy from Dateline, who's talking about the media, Dave Aronberg, who definitely knows law, all the regulations, and certainly how the structures work, and he's going to enlighten us about some of the issues in the case. And the word that I've learned over the years, I don't know if you're going to talk about this today, but it's evidence. Everything is evidence in the trial life. So not sure if that's coming in, but it is an important, certainly, part. So let me talk to you now about the victim perspective. Canada has, oh, we're Canadian, I have to tell you, we're all Canadian, just tell you that. Canada actually has the best description of the victim. And the victim, in a big document that Canada has on their resources for victim, the victim is called the orphan of the criminal system. And I want to talk to you tonight and explain to you why the victim is the orphan of the criminal system. It's a very powerful statement. But how many of you watch things like Law and Order and some of these other programs, and you see at the very beginning, the police, the law enforcement, and the FBI, they're meeting with the family, and then they're explaining to the family the circumstances. It could be a death, it could also be a murder, and whatever have you. And then you see the family in the court. But you never see what is happening to the victim through the whole experience of going through the trial life. The victim becomes invisible. And our story, as many of you know, you can't write it. You cannot do this in fiction, right? So there's so much glitz and glamour and so much positive media and so many intricacies in the story and the relationships that we are not the game. We are not in it. And that's one of the reasons I'll talk soon about why I wrote the book and what the purpose of really talking about the trial life and the victim experience. So our case, there's already been 3 trials, 4 convictions, and 1 new arrest. That's a lot. That's really a lot for a family to go through. And I describe really our life behind the public it's interesting. I've chosen, I don't know why, Dateline 2020. I choose these playground terms. So it's either we're on a seesaw, we're either on a roller coaster, or it's a yo-yo. Okay, so it's always an up and down situation. Even just, the last few weeks is really quite chaotic. So basically and fundamentally, we're either in uncertainty or waiting, and it's a burden. So this is one of the things that I'm going to talk in a minute more about how that becomes a different kind of burden. Now, we're not the main show. And many of you, thank you, there's been a beautiful community out in Florida who've helped us even know more about our grandkids. So Benjamin and Lincoln are 2 boys who lost their father when they were very, very young. Okay, so they're born in 2010 and 2009. Dan died in 2014. It's little babies. They've lost a father. They've had their names changed. And both boys, who are bar mitzvah age, last year was Benjamin, this year is Lincoln, have had to adjust their bar mitzvah. according to what's happening in the trial experience, because there's always something, but it's a sad situation. And I think those are we call them moral.
Wow. I never thought about that. I knew, was it Lincoln's? That one was changed because it was around his bar mitzvah was changed because it was around, was it Charlie's arrest? But I never knew that like both of them. Can you imagine how humiliating? It's so hard to be a teenager, just to be a teenager. And then it's like, oh yeah, my whole family's accused and my uncle's arrested and my grandmother's arrested. That's so sad.
Homicide survivors, but it's a very, very important part to really talk about the children. And there's a lot of children in this case who are affected. There's Garcia's children, there's other children who have also been affected. Catherine McDaniel her brother has children who's also been involved. And of course, my daughter in Montreal, Toronto has children as well. So there's a lot of children who face some of this turmoil. So at the same time that it is a burden, I have to say that we are really very fortunate. So we have to show gratitude. We're grateful to law enforcement. We're grateful to all this community from all the podcasts. Of course, STS is really heightening the show now, but there's everybody around. And I think it's important to remember. And there's the big people like Dateline in 2020 on the Wondery podcast. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything more. And there's Dan's claim in the initial stages. It didn't just happen as this sort of colorful case emerged, but there was really a lot of support from day one. So having talked about the burden and the gratitude, I wanted to expose the trial life. So I wrote a book called The Unveiling, a mother's reflection on grief, murder, and trial life. And the reason I wrote the book is to start to give a voice to grief. Now I'm going to explain to you the title. So the title of the book is called The Unveiling. And The Unveiling is a Jewish ceremony. It's a Jewish gathering. It doesn't have to be formal. It's a Jewish get-together after the burial takes place between 30 days and 11 months. So there's different traditions. An unveiling happens. But the significance of title was up until that point of the unveiling, which ours was 9 months later, I was in a daze before I had an out-of-body experience and I was stunned. But it was only when I saw the tombstones covering the grave site that the finality of the experience, not that I thought that Dan is coming out of the earth, but that really was my deep journey into grief. It really changed everything. And so I wrote the book choosing that title because I want to give a voice to grief. And as you know, there's been tremendous amounts of mass shootings, school shootings, COVID. There's so much loss now in the world all over again, all new families that are suffering. There's a lot of suffering. And it was a very important opportunity for me to write and talk about grief. And of course, Anderson Cooper, I don't know if many of you know, he has a podcast on grief now. So that's another thing, just the whole idea to give this voice. Second voice. And so that's the first reason, the title. The second is more important. In the time when you set up the tombstone on the burial site, we have a piece of fabric that covers the inscription that describes the person's life and so forth. That fabric doesn't get lifted until you have this ceremony, this prayer. Every family does it different. But for the second reason of why I chose the title is for the audiences all over. which is to lift the curtain, lift the veil on trial life, and explain to the public what does it mean to be a victim in a criminal case such as ours. So this is the critical part of the title of the book. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the actual specifics of the victim experience. It's not the only part of the book. There's pieces in here for tonight's topic that I really want to highlight that we don't share enough or talk about. When there's a murder, so this is really important, we and many of Dan's friends are homicide survivors. A homicide survivor is a very unique experience. It's the psychological impact from a sudden violent death. So you need the suddenness, you need the violence, and you need the death. And that whole experience makes the situation and recovery of the family members or friends. Now, the homicide survivor is not the victims in the court in the actual justice system. It's broad-based. So Dan had certain friends who had nightmares after the experience, and other people as well who had, even one person had, unfortunately, a full clinical depression. So what the characteristics of the impact of the sudden violent death can be, doesn't have to be, it's numbness. I had numbness. Now, Phil, if some of you heard the other day, I don't know if you did, in the sentencing of Charlie Adelson, so Phil, that's Dan's dad, he talked about his sleep disturbances. So that's another one. Okay, so this is not a unique, it's not specific to normal loss. It's very characteristic of different symptoms affecting the impact because of the violence. Okay, so this is really an important distinction, and that's one of the reasons I'm starting to talk a lot about the victim experience. It is also very specific to each person, and it's also, if you're in the court system, during the trials, there's the autopsies that you have to see. I never stay in, I can share that with you. I leave the court during the autopsies and the medical examiner, kind of visuals. I don't want a visual of my own intense loss. So that's how I handle that part. So this is the psychological impact. It's a critical part, and it's distinctive from other kinds of loss. In addition now, and more specifically, a little bit to what we're talking about tonight, is the victim. And the victim is a legal relationship with the court system, with the justice system. There's something called Marcy's Law. Marcy's Law was passed in Florida in 2019. It gave some extra opportunities for the victim to engage with the prosecutors and other law enforcement. And it is helpful because they are now, I would say, more required to communicate with you at certain points in the whole experience of becoming a victim. But the victim experience is, you've seen, victim impact statements. There's some victim rights, but it's a legal framework. A lot of people who are not the family members not necessarily fit the victim sort of requirement, let's call it, just make it a little simpler. But what I want to talk more about, bring attention to, and this is really important for lawyers, there must be a few lawyers in here, and therapists. It's not important to see these two concepts as separate. Okay, and I'm explaining to you what it is. Anybody who's working with a victim from the court system has to understand where they are in the psychological process. So the homicide survivor needs to be integrated into the victim experience. Let me give you a couple examples. So the first one, when Catherine McDanough had her mistrial, How many of you know that part? The first mistrial in 2019. We prepared, some of you have seen this, after the trials and after the convictions, we prepared these family statements. And so what happened was we weren't prepared. We were literally not prepared. So Garcia had a conviction. We were pleased about the fact that somebody we had some justice. But Catherine's mistrial, we didn't have it together for it. And we had to write this statement. And it's a very good thing. So my son-in-law, Ian, his father's here tonight. And I'm not saying because his father's here. We fell apart between Phil Shelley and myself, who normally work together. We couldn't do it. And then Ian was there and he said, hey, listen, there's a deadline. You know, the media's out in the hallway. All our nice friends, the media, are waiting. Anyway, we had a lot of trouble getting it together. So I'm showing you here an example of how the justice result affected us psychologically. And here, unfortunately, in Parkland, I was here last year, where the families expected the death penalty of Nicholas Cruz, and it didn't happen. So all of the rehabilitative work that was done really.
Hey, everybody that's joined, thank you. So this was presented, this was Ruth Markel with JAFCO. It was December of 23. So Charlie was convicted in early November, and then Donna was arrested. But Ruth speaks on what post murder life is like, what trial life is like, and she talks about all the stages. She talks a lot about this in her book. But as I'm sitting here listening to her, I've been listening to the Brian Walsh case. And the witnesses today that were Anna Walsh's friends, I mean, didn't your heart, for those of you that listen or watch, just like crush? And I was just thinking about them and how their world's been turned upside down with their friend murdered. And yeah, I mean, that's life changing, right? You think about Tamara Demko and just everybody involved.
The families had difficulty because they weren't ready for such a different outcome than what they expected. So what I'm trying to really get across now, it's a unique way of looking at this, which is to understand the victim, you have to understand where they are psychologically. And that means for the lawyers, they have to have sensitivity to compassion. They have to have an ability maybe to explain the terms 3 and 4 times to the families. And at the same time, anybody who's working in rehabilitative mode with the families have to understand where they are in the criminal system. So I just talked to you about survivors from a homicide, but I also learned something this last year. It's 2 years already. I was honored, I guess it's 2 years, to win an award 2 years ago. And I met this young Black woman in Tallahassee who did not get murdered, but she survived. She survived a shooting. And I want to read you her words because she's a victim too. So the person who lives and survives is also somebody who we have to really listen to. So I'm going to share with you.
Salvatore Pissarro, I hope I say that right. I'm so sorry to read that. As an alienated parent, it's paralyzing what tenacity and strength she has. She definitely does. And I actually have a psychiatrist that's going to be a guest on the show soon. And his specialty is parent alienation. You've probably heard of him, but I'm lucky enough to know him, and that'll be coming soon.
A little bit of reading of she described her experience, and it's unbelievably effective. So trauma affects everybody differently. Nobody could prepare me for how much being a victim would change my life or how it changed me as a person. Doctors can tell you how to care for your wounds after you're released from the hospital. But nobody told me that just being outside of the house would cause me anxiety. I didn't know that being around too many people would make me want to run in the other direction. Nobody warned me that I would have flashbacks. This is common to us too. Flashbacks, nightmares, and day terrors. Nobody told me that living with PTSD would make life so difficult. And nobody told me that some days I would be so angry that I could feel too afraid to leave the house. And nobody warned me that you're constantly looking over your shoulders, wondering if it would happen again. And in her situation, they did find the shooter. She was delivering food as a volunteer. She was in the wrong place, wrong time, and got shot. And the experience here is to remind us, why I'm bringing this up, is not everybody is surviving from a homicide, but they're surviving from other traumas related to victims. She was afraid of being caught on the street by the same person, just randomly. We see the offenders in court. That's an experience. That's a terrible, different kind of experience than some of the other things that I just explained. So now I wanted to share with you, and I talked before, there are potentials for some positive outcomes. We were deprived of seeing the children, but with a large community coming out of Tallahassee, and my lawyer in New York put it in my head that I had to write a bill. I sat on it for 3 years, and then I was in Tallahassee, and after Garcia's trial, and a young woman, her name is Catherine, a lot of her friends are here, Catherine Halpern Cyphers. She came over to me in the hairdress. It's a funny story. And she says, "Ruth, can I give you a hug?" I see she's around Danny's age, but I really don't know her. And I said, "Sure." So she says, "Let's go for coffee after we finish the hairdresser." It's good to be in the hairdresser. Maybe it's better than the bar, who knows? And she says to me at that moment outside, she says, "What can I do for you?" And I said, "Grandparent alienation." I have to tell you, I sat on it for 3 years, and I didn't ever mention it because it was in my head in the back. And she says, "Done." And she had the contact. She created this whole community with lobbyists and others. And really, we had a very successful outcome. The Markel Act, the grandparent bill, was signed by DeSantis in 2022. So I'm just going to leave you with a positive expression. We're going to show the video now of the grandparent bill. And I just want to say Danny's words are, keep the fire burning. So don't give up and keep the fire burning.
Imagine this terrible scenario. Your only son is murdered, leaving his 2 young children, your grandchildren, fatherless. Then the children's mother, your son's ex-wife, cuts you out of their lives. This leaves you without the only remaining connection to your son.
It doesn't look like they're showing the video, but I guess we'll just hear the audio.
And it leaves your grandchildren without any connection to their father's parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, or cousins. Worse, it leaves your grandchildren without the love and support you always offered, even more important now in this time of grief. Years pass while investigators work to find your son's murderer. Tragically, law enforcement then announced to the public their theory. They have evidence that the ex-wife's family hired hitmen to kill your son so that his ex-wife could have full custody of his children, your grandchildren. There's a lot of evidence, and one of the hitmen even confesses and testifies to his role in the crime and tells investigators who hired them. While there's hope that all of your son's killers will be brought to justice, the legal system moves very slowly. 4 years pass. Your grandchildren are getting older. So are you. Despite many efforts for outreach, your grandchildren's mother doesn't budge. You still cannot talk with your grandchildren or see them. Meanwhile, they continue to be raised by other family members who law enforcement claim are responsible for the murder of their father. What can you do? You think, I want to petition the courts for visitation, but your grandchildren live in Florida. Florida law won't allow you to petition the courts, so you can't do that.
Our next bill is HB 1119 by Representative Toledo. Grandparent visitation rights. You're recognized for explanation.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Before you today is House Bill 1119 dealing with grandparents' visitation rights. Under current Florida law, grandparents can only petition courts for visitation with grandchildren in extremely limited circumstances. Bill will create a point of access to courts for grandparents in cases where their child was killed and courts have ruled against the surviving parent in a wrongful death claim. However, this bill remains protective of the rights of Florida parents without changing the many factors courts consider in determining visitation. That is the bill. Firstly, just one step forward, this bill creates an opportunity for children who've lost so much already and due to the wrongdoing of a surviving parent to receive support and affection of the family members who love and miss them dearly, like the Markel family. And I ask for your support. 18 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. Chairman.
Members, I vote that bill will be perfect. Congratulations on the bill. Our next bill, members, is
So I just want to say there is something called positive well-being. And moving from brief, you can move to advocacy or other kinds of initiatives. So now our next speaker is David Aronberg.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you, Ruth. I can see where Danny gets his integrity and his intelligence and his professorial ability from. You're awesome. Ruth Markel, thank you. I'm the state attorney in Palm Beach County, which is the county to the north of us, folks from Utah. And as state attorney, there are 20 of us in the state. And the state attorney in this case in Tallahassee is a friend of mine named Jack Campbell. He's about the same age. And he represents a community that's different than the busy city down here that we all live in. His area is a lot more rural. Jack is someone who, often is seen with a bulge in his cheek from chewing tobacco, and he likes to hunt and fish. And he tells me that he's really learned a lot about the Jewish community and what he's learned in this case, and he just is amazing just with your strength, Ruth, and the family of Danny. But, he was shocked when he saw that the family of the Adelson family were sending Danny pictures of, or at least threatening to send pictures of their kids getting baptized or in front of a church or potentially wearing Nazi uniforms. That was the threat that was made by Donna Adelson telling Wendy, this is how you will convince Danny to give up and to leave Tallahassee with the kids, or at least let the kids live in South Florida. And for Jack, it was really unique. It's like, well, I don't even understand what's going on here. And Jack and I have a good relationship, but I would tell him, hey, I do all this media stuff, but the most important case, the one that the world cares most about, is yours in Tallahassee. So tell me, are you going to prosecute Wendy? And his reaction was silence and stare me in the face, and his eyes would say, hey, this is what his eyes said. All right, you and I are friends, but there's some things I cannot say, so don't put me in this position. Got it? So that's essentially what I read in his silence. But all I know is this: he is following the facts and the evidence. And if you wonder why everyone wasn't prosecuted at once, it was actually very smart, because one person leads to another. See, this case to me is extra important. I'm obsessed with this case, first as a prosecutor, but also as a friend of Danny Markel's. I knew Danny. I was friends with him because I was a state senator for 8 years, and I would be in Tallahassee, and we were both part of the Harvard Club up there, and both part of the Jewish community up there. And so he and I were friends. And his murder was extra crushing for those of us who knew him. And this case is important because I want justice to be done like you, but I know as a prosecutor that we are different than police. Police will make an arrest based on probable cause. prosecutors file charges when we believe we can get a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. And
This is one reason why I've been reading to y'all the probable cause, because I knew we would be covering this, showing this video, because it's interesting what he says. So police arrest, right, on probable cause, but the prosecutors, they got to have it up here.
why, when this case started, do you remember the police in Tallahassee wanted to charge the Adelson family? They had probable cause written out for them. And it was the state attorney at the time, Willie Meggs, who preceded Jack Campbell, who said, no, we don't have it. You may have probable cause. You don't have a good faith belief that we can get a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. So what has happened is prosecutors sometimes have to make a deal with the devil. They didn't have much until they cut the deal with Rivera. Rivera was the key to this case. And he got only an extra 7.5 years on top of the sentence he was already serving for another crime. But remember, Rivera was not the one who shot Danny Markel. He was the guy who was driving up in the car, and he was a principal to murder, and he was facing life in prison. But if you're going to cut a deal with someone, that's who you cut the deal with, not the actual trigger man. And because of his testimony, prosecutors were able to convict Sigfredo Garcia of first-degree murder, and he's in jail for life. And then
Okay, this event was in 2023, late December, like the end of the year. So Don has been arrested for like a month at this point, okay? But I still think it's important. And after Dave is finished, do you have a little bit of breaking news to share with y'all? It's not the W word.
and because they got Garcia, then they were able to go after Katie Magbanua. And although, Ruth, you said there were 3 trials, there were 4, as you correctly noted. Katie Magbanua, for whatever reason, refused to take the deal that has been reported, which would have let her go free. That's the only surprise in this case, that she was reportedly given a deal where she could go free. And she, for whatever reason, only she knows, turned it down. She turned it down. And she thought, because look, Charlie, I'm sure, was saying, they're not going to get us. Charlie's the smartest one in every room. If you doubt that, just ask him. He would tell you that, right? Charlie knows everything. And so it rubbed off on Katie. Katie turned down the sweetheart deal, and so she went to trial, and it worked. She was not found guilty in the first trial. She wore the Menendez brothers sweater and the big glasses, and at least one juror, I think it was one juror, felt sympathy for her. She had kids. And so one juror held out, and it was a hung jury. So then they had to try her twice. And look, Jack Campbell is a great guy and a great prosecutor, but he has Georgia Kappelman, who is someone else I know, on the case. And she is amazing. She's the one that's doing all the prosecutions here. And they got her. They got Katie. And when they got Katie, everything changed. Charlie changed immediately. Charlie then went crazy. All of a sudden, his world started crashing down. Maybe he wasn't the maestro he thought he was. And so he started going crazy. He got a gun. He was worried what was.
Hi, New York Patriot Lady. Aren't you the one that recommended this video to me? I think you are. So thank you.
Going on here that they could find him next. And so pretty soon, though, the bell tolled for him, because the Dolce Vita tape, we're already running late, but can I just say something what Jack did tell me? One thing he did tell me was this. They had this Dolce Vita tape, which they needed to get Charlie. They didn't have enough evidence beyond a reasonable doubt where they could charge Charlie. But they had this tape where after the bump, and you know what the bump was, he and Katie did this, they had a meeting at Dolce Vita restaurant in Broward, and a small restaurant. There was an investigator right there recording it. And they got the recording, and they got it. Except when they tried to listen to the recording, it was muffled. It wasn't very good. The recording was not good. So I said, Jack, how did you fix that recording? How did you get the crucial evidence against Charlie? What'd you do? He said, there is one expert in the whole country. In the whole country, there's one guy. He's in Virginia, and he specializes in this. And he costs a lot of money. I said, well, how did you in your small office pay for it? He said, I found the money. I got federal grants. I got our grants. We paid him this huge fee. And he shows up at the restaurant, and he goes and he listens to the tape, and then he goes around the restaurant, and he starts doing the echo tests, and he starts walking around. He found a way to, like, based on what's in the restaurant, to alter the background noise and to focus in on where the noise was coming from. It's above my pay grade. I went to law school. I'm not an engineer, not a doctor, although my mom wanted me to be. And so he fixed this tape, and you could hear it, and that tape was so incriminating. I got Charlie. And Charlie still, to the day of his verdict, thought he was going to get away with it. After all, he had an answer for everything at his trial, right? He had an answer for everything. Why was the money stapled together in the presence of the hitman? Because that's your thing, to staple the money. Why? Well, I was the one extorted, right? I had to pay them. That's why I gave the hitman money on a payment plan, okay? Because I was worried that the hitmen were going to hurt my family. They said if I didn't pay up, I was like, okay, but why would they kill Danny Markel? That's not how extortion works. Extortion is not when the hitmen go to your enemy, kill your enemy, and then come back to you and say, okay, we're going to kill you next unless you pay me. Normally, extortion means they go to you first. They say, pay me or else we're going to kill you and your family. So his story made no sense, but he said it in his cocksure way. But the jury was smart. They saw through it, and in 3 hours, they convicted. And the best moment to me was not when the verdict was read, although that was amazing and so fulfilling. It was the moment, did you see this? I know you're all watched it. When, do you remember this? When they called the jury in after 3 hours. And that's when he knew. When that jury came back with their verdict within 3 hours, you see what they brought in Charlie? He looked like he had seen a ghost. He walked in, this arrogance was gone. He knew what was coming. And yeah, then the verdict came and he put his head in his hands. But that moment, that was the real Charlie Avison. You know, someone who's all show and no go. You know, someone who thought he was above the law, but found out that reality bites. And so here we are now, and then Donna is next. And here's how I'll finish, because I know we got Dennis Murphy, who's a national superstar. I'm going to bring him up next. Yes. So the thing is this: if they had prosecuted everyone at the same time, they would have lost this case. You needed to go after Garcia first to get to Katie to get to Charlie, and then Charlie to get to Donna. If you had prosecuted Donna when you prosecuted Charlie, you wouldn't have had the incriminating jail calls that we have now. You wouldn't have had the key evidence of consciousness of guilt against Donna. Why do you buy a one-way ticket to Vietnam? Right? So you wouldn't have the evidence. And if you wonder why they haven't prosecuted Wendy yet, well, at the beginning of this case, I thought they weren't going to get Wendy. At the beginning, when I saw her at the police station and she didn't have a lawyer and she gave up her brother early on, I'm thinking, yeah, I believe her. But like the rest of us, after the evidence came out, I saw what really is going on here. And I have my suspicions that justice is coming for her next. So that is my talk. I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for JAFCO. And I'd love to bring up, if I can, from Dateline, national figure, the great Dennis Murphy.
Okay, we're going to pause this. So, Spill the Crime Tea has some tea to share. I want to pull up your chat. So, we'll post the link to subscribe to Spill the Crime Tea, but can verify. She's verified this as well. Donna is scared to death at Homestead Prison. She's in a dorm with 82 women and does not feel safe. And she's not doing well and doesn't think she can live like this. And she's praying her appeal goes through. And that is a verified source. Thank you, Beach Bum. Let me go down and pin that. So will y'all go to Spill the Crime Tea and subscribe to her? She's got more to share, but she just sent this to me. Yeah, so I'd say the SHIT is getting real for Donna. Yeah. a dorm with 82 women. And I think I heard that that prison already had like maybe over 100 too many. Yeah, exactly. Consequences. And South Story, Pissarro, I'm so sorry to hear about your pain. I really think if you haven't read Ruth Markel's book, I think it would help. I know she's the grandmother, she's not the mother. There's a lot of families that are hurting in different ways. I have found how common estrangement is in families. And I think you're going to enjoy when I have that psychiatrist on as well. There's a lot of great adult children who have grown up and have a lot of YouTube content. And I think they could help guide you as well on things. You thought she would be happy at Homestead? Yeah, well, they say it's hot, it's moldy, it's overcrowded. I did hear that Ashley Benefield, the one that was convicted for killing her husband, that she's there. Yeah, we'll do one, Beach Bum. We did one a long time ago, but we'll do another one. We'll have to come up with something. Yeah, the book is really, I ordered it on Amazon, but I believe it's also on Audible. Spill, do you want to say more? It's your news, but I can vouch for what. Yeah. So Donna's scared. So I guess she when did she arrive there? Yesterday. So she probably got woken up like very early, middle of the night, was bussed there. Had to bend over in the shower, spread her butt, do all those things. That's what they do. Yep, a lot of gang members. Absolutely. Homestead. Yeah, an ironic name. Homestead sounds like hell.
I'm also a Delray Beach guy, and this man is my state attorney. Thank you for.
You know what, Beach Bum? I actually got it on VineLink, but like at 7:00 last night. And it was strange. There was somebody messaged me and was like, I heard she's at Lowell. And I thought, I don't think so. And I pulled it up and it said Homestead. So that's when I posted it yesterday morning.
Day in and day out, when the cameras aren't there, your staff, Georgia Capital staff, you guys are the true heroes. Joe, when I was on your show the other night, I was waxing philosophical. With your indulgence, I'll kind of pick up the same thought. Ruth has asked me to talk about the perspective from the media. And when I think about homicides, as I've had to do a lot, unfortunately, in the last 10 years or so with the program, I tend to see a serene lake out there. And then here comes a stone, and there's a big splash. That's the homicide. But that's not all that happens, because the ripples from that stone go out and out, capturing more victims, the children, the grandparents, the everyone along the way.
Why is Donna worried about her husband? Harvey is probably ordering Chinese takeout and on J-Date. I mean, I don't know why she's worried about that. Or is she worried he's cheating? Or, I mean, Harvey seemed to be well-fed, enjoying lunch at the deli every day.
Law enforcement. And when the ripples start to die down on the edge of the lake, there's the likes of me, the media. We're there with our tripods and long lenses and drones. We got extra batteries. We're in there for the long haul, and we pack a lunch. So here you have, here's Ruth coming from Canada, not only having to learn the American criminal court system, which is different by a lot, as you found out, Ruth. You know, she has to deal with us, the media. How are you going to handle it? And she's put into, sometimes I think, of this kind of macabre red carpet situation. We're all out there shouting questions at the family. They're using that back door to go get them. I mean, it must have just been extraordinary. I hope we never showed up at your house with a beach and all that. So it's very difficult. And maybe the hardest thing to understand, let me be upfront about.
I'm sorry to pause this, but Dennis Murphy can wait. Francis, that's nice what you wrote to Taterbug. Hang in there. I'm sending my love. I'm going through something similar, so I understand your pain. We're tough. Hang in. And I don't know. I said I wouldn't get too personal on YouTube, but so I understand what parent alienation is, but then, there is estrangement with like older kids, and we're in a blended family here. And one of my stepdaughters is estranged from us. She's like 31. It's been over 2 years now. And it's hard because, I see what my husband's going through, the pain, but a lot of it was due to parent abandonment because her mother left her as a little girl, like preschool age. And it messes with kids' psyche. And I think it's what you were saying earlier, that it changes someone's brain chemistry, and it absolutely does. And I think about those Markel boys and what they've been through. And I think a lot of all of this and my personal experiences is what drew me into this whole case. But you cope differently, like everything changes. My husband and I have a good friend who's a family therapist. And we were out to dinner not long ago, and I had never said to my husband, but a lot of times at night, like if the dog's barking and I think, oh my God, somebody's coming to the front door, it's going to be a sheriff or a deputy to tell us the daughter has been found dead. And I don't know why, but that's like where I go. And I said that to the therapist, our friend, and he said, that's a coping technique. And my husband looked at me and he said, oh my God, I think the same thing. So for 2 years, we've been thinking like that, and we hadn't even talked about it. So I don't know why I'm sharing all this, but I just want people to know, like, out there, I think things look like, oh, picture perfect for so many, but there's a lot of people that hurt and struggle, and there's other resources out there. There's just a lot of resources. I'll leave it at that.
This is the media are not here in the most part for justice for Danny. That's Dave's job. That's George's job. We don't do that. But we're going to be around, so you have to contend with us. And that what we're really doing there is it's a great story. The Dan Markel murder case is a fascinating story. Here we are 10 years in and it's still going. This is like an epic true crime Super Bowl. And now we're in double, triple overtime, I think. And I think of how we approach it, since we're not approaching it the way George is or Dave. I think of this as having two profound parts. It begins in this quiet little university town in northern Florida, and it's a Tallahassee CSI police procedural story. You have these extraordinary detectives analyzing cell phone dumps and text messages and following videos, and it's just an incredible detective job. And it ends up, as we know, with the three convicted perpetrators. But that's not the end of the story, because the court of public opinion, as I think of all of us out here, one more satisfying ending than that. It's not enough. You're telling me this is a murder for hire. Who paid for it? Who did it? And that's where we end at the end of the Tallahassee CSI story. And now we're in the truly Shakespearean phase. This is the story of the Adelsons, the families. And I think you almost need to be Shakespeare to talk about it. And it's a totally different, it's going on, but what they tell us that the brother set up the murder of his wife's husband, his nephew's father. That there is a larger, as the prosecution presents it, a larger conspiracy of this family, all well-educated, wealthy, that they would do this thing. And we just can't stop watching and listening to Joel's show. There's just, it's absolutely hypnotic. And it's not that we're not about justice for Danny, it's we're pursuing that story. And here we're going on to the next phase of this thing, and I can't wait to see what happens. I want to be around to be able to to tell you about it. And I was thinking, Ruth, about your thoughts about what happens to the victims. And sadly, Danny's story seems to be dropping further and further away. You know, we're talking about the killers. Ruth, with your permission, I looked up your victim impact statement at the end of the McMonaghan trial. And let me just read you some of her words. This is Ruth to the court. My life was shattered. For me, closure and normalcy are only words in a dictionary, not a reality that I will ever experience again. So Professor Daniel Markel was lost to all of us on that day, and the justice for Danny is a story for us to be continued. I hope to be reporting along the way. Ruth and Phil and Shelley have been so generous in our time, and I really hope we have not been badgering you, but I know there must have been times when dealing with the media has been a problem. Because when we get a story like this in our bit, we just run with it, and we're going to stay on it. And I hope maybe by keeping it in the news, in the forefront, and Joel's tenacious reporting with the podcast, maybe in the long run it helps. We're not just the vultures and ghouls, but we also become the journal of record of a profoundly grotesque experience. Boarding a plane to a non-extradition country, picked up on a jetway. Wouldn't we all like to have the cell phone video of that? The FBI agent who's been on this family's case for approaching 10 years, Ruth, that he's wrestling with her for the iPhone. I want your phone. I've got a warrant. And she's not understanding what's going on. And all of a sudden, they're all leaving the airport, and Harvey, the husband, is there. And it's like, you're going to get down for booking and your life is over. And will somebody call Harvey an Uber? And I just... So it just gets stranger and stranger. And, you know, in Hollywood Writers' Room, you could get away with some of this stuff. It's all real. And Ruth, you've been splendid in dealing with all of this. You know, and I speak to here just as a stand-in for mainstream media. And what a job Joel has done on this podcast. Joel, and people with microphones don't usually get that kind of acknowledgement. You are the man. So, and I'm astonished. Probably all of you out there can tell the story better than any of us. We get paid to tell the story, but you know the transcript, you know chapter and verse of what's happened. But thank you for asking me to join your panel tonight. We'll be around. We'll be here.
Just want to say a couple of very quick things, and then we're going to slide the podium over, and I think we're going to take questions. Number one, Dave Aronberg, they always call him the Florida State Attorney, but they really should always call him just a great guy. He really is. Comes on my podcast all the time. One of the brightest guys. He's right up there with...
Yeah, Dennis Murphy has like really followed this case, hasn't he, Rebecca? Could see him in the gallery during Donna's trial. And for everybody like hurting, and I can say just from seeing things with my husband's children, who are all adults, all our kids are adults, things as they start maturing, and especially those that have gotten therapy and learned to talk through it, they do really well. But there is hope. Don't ever give up hope on it.
Dan Markel. Dan maybe edge you out by an inch or so. But this guy's a brilliant guy. Much more importantly, a very, very nice guy, one of the few politicians. Let's give him a round of applause. Dennis Murphy knows who I'm going to mention right now, Ty West. I was one of the first producers hired at MSNBC. And when I first met Ty West, who was back in 1995 or 96, already a senior producer at Dateline, I said to him, one day I'm going to be a Dateline correspondent. And it never happened. But it happened for Dennis Murphy. And Dennis Murphy is the newsman that I always wanted to be. And I mean that sincerely. There are very few people. There are a lot of people, I won't mention any names, Bill O'Reilly, with big egos in the business who I've met, and I've gotten to know a lot of people. But but I've known Dennis not a long time, but he is full of humility. And, you know, if I could redo my
I have to think the boys are conflicted. I mean, now with social media and YouTube in this case, I mean, they've been on what, Dateline 4 times, 20, 48 hours. There has to come a point where they're kind of thinking, okay, some of this has got to be true. I mean, there's no way all this these convictions, but we don't know what they've been told. I mean, were they told Dad was abusive? I mean, we don't know, but there's so many people that say so many great things about Dan. I have to think they somewhat are going to wonder, but they may never, I mean, they might always be loyal to their mom, you know?
my career, I would want to be him. So I appreciate kind words. And obviously, I never thought I would say these words either, but through this tragedy, obviously horrific, but I gained a second Jewish mother, and I actually sort of love it. Ruth tells me what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, just like my mom. And I'm nervous right now because I don't know if we're doing a little back and forth between the panelists, but I think we're taking questions. Ruth, are we taking questions? And Ruth really is an absolute pillar of strength. I tend to sometimes, every once in a while, see the glass half empty.
I envision with the boys, Taterbug asked, do you think at least one of the boys might go rogue? In situations like this, I think it's rare you see all the siblings agree. Did anybody, I know some of y'all did, follow the Melody Ferris trial in Georgia? Was that last year? I'm losing track. Where the wife like shot her husband and killed him and put him on a burn pile. And they had 4 kids. They're all adults, right? 3 of them were on Dad's side, who was dead. And then there was one who sided with Mom, and she ended up being found guilty, and she's in prison. I don't know. I think it's rare they're gonna all agree, but I do think there'll be one. I mean, obviously these kids have got to be super intelligent. I'm sure that I would be shocked if Wendy's let them go to therapy, because she didn't want them alone with the therapist, because we don't know what they remember. They might be like, we didn't break a TV.
My mother always half full, most positive, optimistic person. Ruth Markel right there with my mom. Always.
I'll tell you also, I think is as evil as Donna is Brian Walsh's mom, Diana Walsh. I think there's a lot there. A lot. That's all I'm going to say.
Like what is going on? She is always seeing the glass half full. So without further ado, I'm going to slide this out of the way. If I can do that, I might get a handyman. And if not, well, I will do that right now. And then we'll take some questions.
Turn it on.
Yeah. I just called a handyman and said I need to drill 2 holes, and he looked at me like I was crazy. Yeah.
Hi, good evening. I've been a lawyer for 25 years, but I haven't tried a case in about 15. So maybe you can answer this. Do you guys remember when Hillary Clinton was being accused about the email thing and she used something called bleach bits? What happens if these idiots were smart enough to get bleach bit, and can you recover stuff after? Because they had a lot of money to throw at this. I don't know that they were smart enough to, but what do you say about what can be discovered, and could they have used bleach bit? And what happens when you use bleach bit?
What is bleach?
There we go. I gotta tell you, I've been a prosecutor for 12.
I think she asked something about bleach bit, something that apparently wiped out Hillary Clinton's emails.
13 years now. I've never heard of a bleach bit. I don't know what that is. But as far as deleting emails or things, there's a digital footprint. That's the thing. Criminals are stupid. You see, especially nowadays, there's a digital footprint. Emails, text messages are forever. And they thought they were so smart. They were talking in code. How about the TV? When you're talking in code, we're on to you. We know. Plus, they're sending really incriminating text messages back and forth. Like they press. Remember the one message where they said, please delete this after you read this about your father's birthday gift. Oh, right. So no, I'm not worried at all that they will be able to delete. If it's there, we're going to find it.
Yeah, I just want to add to that very quickly. We just did a show on Survivor all about digital forensics, and we had a guy that specialized and testified in a couple of the trials up in Tallahassee. His name is John Sawicki. It's all about digital forensics, and the bottom line was that law enforcement's always sort of a half step behind Apple and big technology companies, but they're at a point now, even with WhatsApp, because that's come up a lot, that they're going to be able to get the information. And it's my belief, if Donna is anything like my beautiful mother and Harvey, they're not the best with technology, and he just sees their stuff. So I think they're going to get some information.
Really.
Can you be my Jewish mother too? I just want to, this concept of bleach, here's a little tip from the Dateline archives. I was talking to the chief medical examiner in Pennsylvania one day, and he said, you don't use bleach in a crime scene. You use Windex. Remember my big fat Greek wedding? Windex will make DNA absolutely unreadable. So don't try this at home.
Hi. Before I ask the question, I want to say I think everyone maybe in this room has some kind of a connection to this case. I saw on the video and I read in the book, Jackie Toledo, who introduced the bill, was one of my sorority sisters, and it was such a beautiful surprise to see her name in the book and in the video, and we're all so touched, and I just hope you feel the support and love from everyone in South Florida the way that I hope it's going in Tallahassee. But my question is, have you ever heard from Robert Adelson? Has he reached out to you? Does he support you? Is there any contact?
Yes, first of all, thank you very much for talking about Jackie Toledo, who was a sponsor. He has. Okay, so Rob Adelson, if some of you listen to the Wondery podcast, Over My Dead Body, yes. So Rob has very much been a part of sort of participating, not too much publicly, but I do have to say he's been very helpful behind the scenes.
Has he reached out to you since these latest two developments, the conviction and Donna's arrest?
You know what, I think that's personal to him, okay? But I do want to just say that he has been estranged from the family, and he's certainly welcome to reach out, and he does.
That's wonderful.
His family participation.
Along those lines, by the way, of the question, and thank you. That was an amazing question about Rob. I didn't even think about that. The legislation that passed that gives you rights to see your grandchildren, does it actually apply in your case? Because Wendy has not been charged or found liable for wrongful death.
Okay, so I'll explain a little. Thank you. So the legislation is developed for anybody who had a spouse who died, and the other living spouse can be charged civilly or criminally. So as you know, Wendy has not been charged civilly or criminally, but that's always an option. And what's amazing is I've had so many people reach out to me with personal murder situations and others. So I'm very happy to say that the legislation is being used. So that's a really positive outcome.
I mean, the Markels did that legislation, right? And then Wendy moves to Texas. That's why. God, I cannot stand her.
I'm actually asking these questions of my wife, who probably knows the transcripts better than many of the lawyers. First, she believes that there really were three motives connected within the custody battle. Also, that Wendy felt Dan was going to expose her where she would be disbarred, and the Adelsons felt that Dan knew about their financial shenanigans, insider trading, and other things that they were afraid he was going to reveal. And my second part is Rauschbaum seems to be staying on this case in a way that for many people makes no sense. He had never tried a murder case, but he did handle their white collar problems before this. And my wife believes they're sticking with him because they're afraid any other attorney might not care about their white collar problems.
I think that's a Dave Aronberger right there. Now, I don't know about all the different motives. I can tell you that Rauschbaum, I thought, did a good job. I mean, look, you got to deal with the crap that you're given. And he had a very weak hand, and they came up with a theory that explained the money being in the hands of the killers, among other things, even though it was totally preposterous. So I don't know. I think you choose the lawyer who's going to secure your freedom. I don't think that Charlie chose Rauschbaum because he was worried about his parents or his future white collar liability or criminality. I think right now you're trying to save your hide. And Rauschbaum is a successful attorney in South Florida. But here's the thing, what sells in South Florida doesn't sell in Tallahassee. And I can tell you because I lived in both places.
No, I think Charlie chose Rauschbaum because that's what mommy said to do. Because it wasn't the David Marcus guy who he should have hired too expensive or something, I think. But these mother-son toxic relationships like Charlie and Donna, that's like Brian Walsh and his mom. I'm telling y'all, there's going to be a whole lot more there. She was paying their rent on that house. It was $5,000 a month. She paid it 6 months in advance, so $30,000. She hired a private eye to prove that Anna Walsh was cheating on Brian. Yeah, I mean, he was like freaking selling counterfeit Andy Warhol paintings. Interesting, all these toxic sons and their moms. My ex, he was having an affair, and my ex-mother-in-law was like paying for it. So he had one of mommy's credit cards, and they were going out to dinner and stuff, and she knew she was funding their affair.
Live in Tallahassee. A lot of people don't look very highly on Miami, and especially the week. Didn't you notice the week that the verdict came out? It was the Miami FSU game. So tensions were heightened that week with hatred towards Miami. And you have a defendant who is asking a Tallahassee jury to find him not guilty. At the very least, they were trying to help the sister take the kids out of this so-called hellhole of Tallahassee where the jurors live. So I thought that.
Oh, and my ex also used to try to tell our son, who was like 5 and 6, like keep a journal, and found it later. I mean, I had like 80% custody, right? But it was like, Dad wants me to know if mommy is bipolar. So I've kind of lived through this whole like manipulation of kid thing, and it messes them up. Patriotic, Tara Kawase. Yeah, she said they got Charlie's entire iCloud. So there's a lot there.
And when they lost their motion to move the case out of Tallahassee, that die was cast.
Jurors who Charlie now in those phone calls, listened to phone calls, is calling them inbreds. Inbreds, rednecks.
After the conviction, yeah. Well, that's not going to go up for his mom on trial.
So one of the jail phone calls, Donna mentioned that Dan Rauschbaum said that she may not make it out. Does that mean that he knew about their escape plan to Vietnam? And is he liable? Could he get in trouble for aiding and abetting?
If he took an action to help them escape arrest. At the time, though, there was not a warrant out for Donna's arrest. Where it comes into play, Donna's departure is in consciousness of guilt. They're going to use that against her in her trial. Why are you leaving with a one-way ticket if you did nothing wrong? But Rauschbaum will not be charged with anything unless there was an arrest or he knew that they were about to be arrested and he actively helped them leave the country. There's no evidence that he actually did So I don't think he will be charged with anything.
Oh, I think he definitely gave the advice. Taterbug, the age that the boys start dating and the girlfriends ask questions. Yeah, think about when they get married and, or yeah, they have a serious girlfriend, and these girls are going to be like, wait, what's going on? And those boys, like, Mama Wendy's not in control, because we all know the power of the P.
How did the police get very lucky to be able to record the Dolce Vita tape in a restaurant where they could have been 4 tables away and not next door?
It's a very small restaurant, and they had their eyes on Charlie and Katie, and after the bump, they were waiting to see what they were going to do. So when they went to the restaurant, there was a undercover investigator there. Now, as far as being lucky to get the table next to them, that's just luck. They were there and the bag was on the table. In fact, Charlie even said, that guy looks like a cop, or he's got a bag on the table. I don't care. I'll say what I want to say. Yet, to get the tape didn't work, and they had to hire the one guy in the country who managed to suppress the alternative noise, all the extra noise, and found what was really on the tape.
By the way, if I know Steve Cohen, he's already booked that one guy in the country for next week, right, Steve?
My favorite line in the tape that's in the clear from Dolce Vita, right at the top. If they had anything on us, we'd be at the airport now. Do we need to keep listening to the tape?
That line was, in my view, the most important line of the entire recording. The first line.
Right? A lot of rhubarb after that.
Right.
My question is, in the event of Wendy Anderson's arrest, what happens to the children?
So first of all, thank you for the question. We're all worried about the children. In the event of her arrest, this is bad news for many people, she is allowed to make decisions about what happens to the children. So that is, we knew this before, and Joel had a guest the other night, Louis Batiste, who sort of read the part. So it's section 39 and so forth. So I think that that's the first reality. We don't know who she has, or we don't know anything like that. It changes on conviction, but the reality is on arrest. I got kicked out of because of my watch.
That's your fault.
There it is. So that's really the answer to that point.
I have a quick question for Dave, if I may. Dave, the more we're listening to these jailhouse calls, and we listen to a bunch more, Charlie's absolutely fixated on Wendy, and they have to know they're being recorded. I mean, these people are not complete idiots, and it says it every time you call, and they're literally, to me, seem to be setting her up right now. Do you think that they're going to flip on her? The only family member, I think, with a chance of flipping on another family member is Charlie flipping on Wendy. I don't see, and we know Jewish mothers, Donna's not flipping on her kids. They're not flipping on her. Maybe Donna flips on Harvey, but can't get blood from a stone. That's not, they're just not going to get a great deal to flip on Harvey. But she could get out early if she flips on Wendy, and she won't. But could Charlie flip on Wendy? Think about it like this. Wendy sold out Charlie within 5 minutes at the police station. And Charlie has expressed frustration at Wendy. He did so even at the trial, because he's now in prison for the rest of his life because he was trying to do her a solid. So could he give her up to get out of prison before he leaves in a casket? Yeah, I think it's possible. In the back.
I don't know, but I'm going from memory, but it seems to me that there was some sort of deal cut with Wendy if she would testify. Now, I don't know what happens with that. I guess this is for you, Dave Aronberg.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't a deal, but it was immunity. She was given use immunity, which means that whatever she said could not come back to haunt her. She could not be used against her. But prosecutors and police can still independently investigate leads that are not from her own testimony. And they pretty much had everything already. So they didn't lose much by giving her use immunity. And the reason why they gave her use immunity is because she would not testify. Otherwise, she'd probably take the fifth. And we're trying to make it hard for them. They got her to testify on the stand, and they gave her just use immunity, which is the most limited type of immunity. So it was fine for prosecutors. I don't think they lose anything by giving her that immunity for her testimony. Now she's testified twice now.
Yeah, one other point just related to that, and Joel had other guests on this. So there's a whole thinking that she did commit perjury. And so she might not be involved on the criminal side of the murder part, but there is a movement that suggests that there is a fair amount of perjury.
It is always possible to charge a witness with perjury, but it's rare. I think that if Wendy is charged, it's going to be for the murder. I don't see the only charge brought against Wendy being for perjury, just because it's very rare and it's hard to do. You know, the intent to lie, even though, but I know the internet sleuths have shown specific lies. I get it, but it's a rare charge because it's very hard to prove.
Thank you.
Okay, and after that, I feel like we've got.
Yeah, I've made plenty of videos showing her perjury, but Dave Aronberg, like he just said, I mean, they're not going to charge her with perjury. Several people have said that. It's very, very, very rare.
I hear from the couple from Utah, at least why you decided to come at the very least. But he's also an attorney, so I want to hear what you think of the case.
Okay, so Katie and Sigfredo could have jointly flipped. Katie could have got out. Sigfredo could have got a better prison. And during her proffers, she's holding back. There's got to be another link or element to this. What are your thoughts on that?
She said that she didn't want to sell out Sigfredo because he's the father of her children.
That was a death penalty issue. So she did, at the very beginning, she didn't want to swill on Garcia because he was charged with the death penalty. So that was her earlier circumstance. But nobody believes later on she had another whole trial of why she didn't talk. So those are just, there's a lot of questions still.
During the proffer, though, she kept saying, I need to talk to Sigfredo. So I think there's something more to it.
How do you know what's in the proffer?
In the proffers that Mentor lawyer had that came up.
She keeps saying did that lady just say the proffers that Mentor lawyer had?
I need to talk to Sigfredo.
I'm not sure. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that.
No, it's already over. In fact, I think she's going to get out. I gotta say, I think she's. Oh, when? No, they would never know. I mean, they've not. Just realistically, they're not. No. I think.
Did he just say he thought Katie was going to get out? I gotta back that up.
Seen that. I haven't seen that.
No, it's already over. In fact, I think she's going to get out. I gotta say, I think she's. Oh, when? No, they would never know. I mean, they've not. Just realistically, they're not. No. I think Katie. Here. So let me tell you. So, wait, hold on here. So, Katie.
Finally, someone's getting mad at somebody's side.
Katie is sentenced to life in prison. She's going to be in prison a long time. But she testified, and she did truthfully at this last trial for Charlie. She did so without a deal in place. Prosecutors never promised her anything. But the reason why she did that was because her lawyer believes that they can get the prosecutors to agree to a release before she dies in prison. So I don't know when, but I do believe that Katie one day will get out because she testified truthfully in Charlie's trial. After she lied in both of her trials, she's not a very good liar too. You can see right through her. Horrible. But you can tell she was telling the truth this time, at least for the most part. She did lie a little bit. She right? Oh, she did lie a little bit. She's an awful individual. But I do believe because she testified truthfully at this trial that she will get at some point in her life to be reunited with her kids, and maybe when her kids are already, grandparents themselves, we'll see.
I did hear I know you have a question. I'll just comment on Katie. There is a possibility that the benefit to Katie is that she can maybe be in a prison closer to her family. So I don't know if you agree with that, but that's one of the potential deals.
If Ruth is right, it's possible. I believe that it will probably lead her at least
Yeah, but the problem is Katie can't go to that prison now because Don is there.
one day. It could be 40 years in prison. But Ruth is also right. It could be a deal to have her closer to her family. Couple from Utah. We got to hear from a couple from Utah. Give them a round of.
So the Sigfredo's trial, the death penalty was on the table, but the jury didn't. They sentenced him to life in prison.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, my wife and I, obviously we live in Utah. We have a very good friend. He's also a lawyer, and sometime in the summer, he kept telling me, you gotta pay attention to this case. You gotta listen to this. And we kind of got sucked in. We love Joel. We absolutely love this show, Surviving the Survivor. It really does have the best guests. We have so much sympathy for Ruth and our family. And yeah, we love it. And I was talking to her one night, and I think we're listening to Joel's show, STS, and said, hey, honey, wouldn't this be fun? And well, one thing led to another, and here we are. And we're thrilled to be here. So,
well, you're definitely getting a special swag bag.
Thank you. If I could, my lovely wife has a question for Dave. Dave, if Charlie does indeed flip on Wendy, what sort of benefit, if any, do you think that he could get?
Same thing that Katie could get. He could not die in prison, so he could get out at some point. I think it's an outside chance. I don't think it's likely, but I think there is a chance. Keep in mind, though, when you're dealing with people like Katie or Charlie, the value of their testimony is limited because they're liars. Charlie is a convicted principal to a murder, first-degree murder, and he lied through his teeth on the stand in a preposterous story about being extorted. So it's not like he has a huge value for prosecutors, but he could help. And if he comes clean, I think they would make it not a specific deal. They'll say testify and then we'll figure it out later. That's the deal that Katie got. She's hoping to be let out. She may not. Oh, where Katie really lied? Remember she said on the stand, look, I'm here because I want to do the right thing. I just want there to be justice for Dan Markel. She had that chance over and over again. She's a liar. She wanted to get out and save her own hide. That's all.
I don't know if she's maybe like
something like that. Yeah, she's terrible. Yeah. Okay. The boss will tell me one more. Let's take two more quick questions. There's so many hands. Yeah, and let's get Dennis in the mix here.
I can talk really loud. Ruth, I had heard that, well, we know Dan's academic prowess, and a big study for him was the death penalty. Did you as a family have influence in that there would be no death penalty trials?
Well, if actually the answer is yes, but no also. The death penalty was used for Garcia because of the opportunity. This was the first person who was charged. And at the time, it was an opportunity to have some leverage. So we did agree to have the death penalty sort of on the piece of paper. We were very pleased that he did not get the death penalty. And there was a lot of internal conversations about whether he really should use it for leverage. But even in the sentencing, there was a little wiggle room. And, with the victim impact statements, that would be very much a part of sentencing for the death penalty I'm talking about. So the answer was we used it once to Georgia asked us, she consulted, and they really preferred to have it on the option of putting it out. So that's the answer. We probably would find a way of not going forward on it, but it was an issue.
It's interesting. Pudding Cup, this was in 2023. It was right after Charlie's trial. So it's been 2 years ago, but I just thought it was good. It's almost over. It's got less than 10 minutes left.
Hi, my question is feedback for Ruth. There have been a lot of comments on the comment sections of all the podcasts. People want to know what
the childhood was like of Donna Adelson. Do you have any insight? And I ask that because anyone coming from a toxic family or someone who has a parent that's a narcissist, you see there's this psychotic break from reality. They're in a psychosis or something. I don't even think that Charlie, I think Charlie did it for Donna. I'm sure there's plenty of people that think that, but they lost track of reality. I wonder why Donna is such a toxic woman, why adults allow their parent, Donna, to to influence them so much. Do you have any insight?
I have a lot of insight. We've had actually a couple of people who've come out of the woods to tell us some previous background in the family, but I'm not going to answer the question the way you think I'm going to answer it. I once consulted at the very beginning when Danny was murdered about what to talk to the children about. And my first degree, although I don't use it for 40 years, but it's in social work. And I said to the child, he was a child psychiatry consultant, and I said, like very openly, I said, what do you think about the pathology here? And he says, no, Ruth, some families are evil. And this is an evil family. And you know, and in the Jewish religion, you know, we don't necessarily believe in original sin or anything like that, but it actually really shows more and more and more. So that's the real answer to looking at it from a pathological point of view. Chills, yeah. It is chilling.
We're going to take one last question as the mic's getting handed out. I want to ask Dennis. Dennis, in your experience, why, and I think I asked you this on the show, why do people commit these crimes? When you cover them constantly, she just talked about a psychotic break. What do you think is really at the root?
I think it's a rich cocktail of things that happen. Men, women, money, jealousy, infidelities. There's a lot of things that come into play. But I think it's a question you really can't answer in the whole criminal justice scheme of things. Why did you do it? What were you possibly thinking? You're trying to put rational thought to an irrational act.
This is the final question, and I think Ruth is going to be signing some books after this. So stay tuned. The party's not over yet.
Joel. Sarah's over there, always, or she took them out of the box. Sarah's there organizing. Okay.
This is the last question. Okay, Ruth. Firstly, it's an honor to be here with you, and I couldn't wait to come here. I just lost my husband 12 weeks ago from cancer, and I swore to him before I died, I'd come and see you. Wow. I did. And I have to do this because I knew your son in 2008, and I was let go in 2013 from the Adelsons. And I want to tell you that you're the most wonderful, loving, and your son also comes from just wonderful genetic genes and wonderful people. They are the best people I've ever had to hear about in my entire life. Not what the Adelsons have said about them. All my 6 years that I was there, I kept my mouth shut. I listened, I journaled, and I tell myself, one day I'm going to meet that wonderful woman who brought up that wonderful, loving man who loves his two little children. I have a grandson. Today was his birthday. He's 4 years old. I have a son. I felt I lost my son. I met your son. I worked on him. I'm a hygienist 50 years. And I really can say I loved your son. I saw your children. I saw your children in the office. Okay? I saw Benjamin. Lincoln wasn't born yet, but I sent them gifts. I did send them gifts. They were like family to me, even though I never met Robert. I sent them gifts too. The little Lila's now, Lila, Max, Robert's children. I sent them gifts too. Because I do the right thing, not because I have to, it's because I wanted to. I wanted them to see another person in an office doing the right thing, not what the Adelsons did and talked about you constantly. Horrible things. I didn't believe one word they ever said. And in 2012, when Wendy was getting divorced, and I'll never forget this, I went to Donna and I said, you didn't give me my paycheck. And she says, we're going through a divorce. I don't have time to give you a paycheck. And she looked at me, pointed to me and said, when I said, okay, I got it. I know. She says, no, I got you. And now we got her. I'd love to give you a hug later, if that's okay. Wow, thank you.
Wow. So that lady used to work for the Adelsons. I felt kind of bad for Ruth. Like all of a sudden that lady's like, I met your son. I worked on him.
Wow, what a final comment, Ruth. Go ahead.
Wow.
So Donna pointed to that lady. She wanted her paycheck and said, we're going through a divorce. We got you. And the lady said, and now we got her, like arrest.
I'm always amazed, sort of what opportunities, situations come.
I'm going to go back and listen to her name.
I must say, I'm not a big sort of believer in divine intervention, but somebody said, I commented once about something related, and they said, well, look at it, it's in the cosmos. So my answer to you is, thank you very much. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear about your husband. I also want to say that there's a very good thing. This is for others also. David Kessler is one of the best specialists on grief. He has a program called Tender Hearts. And I'm just going to update the grief issue because I didn't talk about the grief tonight. I often do. That for those of you who are experiencing any kind of personal loss, a spouse, hopefully no children, a sister, a brother, whatever, that today's thinking on grief is very relieving because I don't use the word you're entitled, but nobody looks at grief as pathological or complicated grief. And 2 years. So if you're worried from day to day that you're not going to get over it, and this is for a lot of other people, you really should read his work. So I just want to say, I hope you have an easy time, and don't be hard on yourself. But that was just beautiful what you just said. Thank you.
So as they say in Dennis Murphy's world, that is a wrap. And we are going to have Ruth sign some books. And Dave, I know, has to run. I don't know about Dennis.
I think that's it. I was going to share this. Hold on. And thanks for everybody that opened up tonight. That was really amazing. And Audrey, I'm so sorry for everything you went through. I don't think I said that. So y'all probably saw the little video where it's like 8 minutes. I loaded it last night, but I was looking at everybody's docket. So I looked at Sigfredo's, Katie's, Charlie's, and Donna's. So I'm on the Leon County Clerk. This is where you go and see all this stuff, the clerk website. And so I posted about it, and a lot of y'all saw the video. But Wendy's testimony, there was a lot of buzz during the trial. So right after she testified, within days, it was on the website. Right here. On August 28th, transcript of jury trial excerpt, testimony of Wendy Adelson. That's insane. And apparently these were very, very expensive to do. And then also somebody reminded me today, I had forgotten this, Chris Corbett's testimony. So all of that cell phone data is there. Now, I know people are like, well, everybody's got all the testimony on their dockets because they use it in the appeals. Yes, they do the whole trial transcript that comes months later. But this is the excerpt of Wendy and Chris Corbett. It kind of gave me some renewed hope. So I just wanted to say that you never know, right? I mean, we don't know. But I am going to read through Chris Corbett's. But Wendy's, the whole reason I went looking for it was the sidebar, because those are all documented, but it wasn't anything juicy. Rock solid alibi. Wendy's friend came up with gibbers. A friend asked for bullet. Brother bought the TV. Mother paid. Dad was there when TV was smashed. Jane said Jeff, lawyer accused of theft. That's a great point. She had a scapegoat for everybody, everything, didn't she? Yeah, it's never Wendy. That's a really good point. Yeah, I agree, Tally Gal, that former employee. I would love to know if that's who that is. Yep, Wendy's an angel. Adelson support group might be a small group. I did look up also the Diana Walsh. There were some comments about her earlier. I definitely think she's involved. And, you know, she didn't get custody. So I've been really torn up about these boys. That the court ruled that Diana Walsh wasn't fit, which kind of told us all we need to know, in my opinion. And then I've been reading things online that there's really just not a lot of information about it, Barry, because they're minor children, so it's private. But it says in articles they're in Massachusetts foster care. But how awful. But then I read somewhere that they did get to go live with her sister for a bit, but then she couldn't handle it. But I don't think that's accurate. But back to Diana. So she paid their rent for 6 months at that house. And then the owner of the house is suing her because she signed the lease, and just suing her because like a murder took place in this house. So now that affects the value. And also saying like the home is really damaged, but it's pending in civil court right now. They're suing her for money. Wait, what'd you say? We won't be getting phone logs on Donna, will we? No. The only reason we got the jail calls, logs or calls? You probably mean the calls. I mean, I think you can get phone logs. Yeah, in prison, I don't think we can get those. No, actually, don't people get on Sarah Boone? But as far as phone calls, we're not going to get those unless they're evidence. What does this say, Spill? Did you see how Wendy looked at Donna for confirmation when she asked if gibbers meant Jew in boots? She looked at Donna when she said, my friend came up with the name. Yeah. Yep. So, well, you think Donna's the friend? Yeah, I wonder. I don't know. It's the first time she had said that, though, because before she had said, I gave it. It was a silly nickname. You think Harvey did the TV so Wendy could keep her hands clean? Yeah, it's the worst thing ever. Well, I appreciate all y'all joining tonight. Spill, that would be a good short to make. Just saying, that'd be a good one. Let me see, I'm scrolling. Sorry, there's comments. Yeah, she sure said she came up with it and then cleaned it up. Yeah. Well, thanks for everybody. I appreciate it. And yeah, thanks, Audrey. Like I said, Friday, 6:30 Eastern time, 5:30 my time. I'll have to like race home from work. But I'm looking forward to it. So tomorrow's Thursday. And yeah, I appreciate the follows, y'all. I'm just trying to get to 10,000. It's just a personal goal. I'm kind of a type A kind of person. But I appreciate everybody being here. And I'm glad y'all got to watch this. I thought it was a really good panel, and to hear from Ruth. And I adore Dave Aronberg. I just think he's awesome. I really enjoy his channel. He seems like a good one. But y'all have a nice night, and I'll see y'all Friday. Good night.
the state isn't going to decide to arrest me. Oh my God, I can't believe this. I believe that the truth has a way of coming out.
Okay, so we think like he's not waking up. Like, is that?
There is enough circumstantial evidence there to infer that Wendy took affirmative steps to help further the conspiracy.